call to order this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. I would note that all commissioners are present. We met in executive session to discuss matters of litigation and real estate. We will have a pledge of allegiance followed by a moment of silence, and we would ask that the pledge tonight be led by Commissioner Engel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome. We'll start off with petitions, complaints, suggestions from citizens. Do we have anybody who wishes to address the board tonight? Nobody? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium. Yeah, state your name and please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you. D. Harry, 1916 Deer Path Road. I just wondered, how often do you renew contracts for the township?
In what respect?
And just in our, there are waste and things like that that we have to.
Like the
trash
garbage
contract, Miss?
Yes.
Trash?
I think, I believe we're in year 3 of a 5-year. I believe it was renewed in 2015. The contract was, the municipal solid waste contract was awarded to Penn Waste in 2015. And I believe it's a 5-year
That is correct.
duration,
yes.
yes. So 2020, it's up in a year and some change. A year and a quarter, basically, it's up. And then there's no option tied to that, right? We would have to, or is there?
There is an option for,
Okay.
there is a provision for,
1 year extension.
for extensions.
Okay. And is that a dual option? Like one party can't exercise? Right?
One party cannot exercise
Okay.
that. It has to be mutually exercised.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have another question, and I saw on the board there that there must be a proposal for the Progress Avenue or Lingelstown Road. It looks like to me from there that might be a proposal for a turnaround.
No, that's not a proposal. That was just a brainstorming idea session. And in fact, I don't think that if you're talking about the traffic circle, that it probably is not going to be possible based on further information that we receive.
So do you don't have any plans materialized yet for that?
No.
Because that is a hazard right there. I go from Lingelstown straight out that way and to get to my designation, and every day somebody, gets right out in front of me, and I have to brake so I don't hit them. I know you had a sign there for a good while with arrow, and it was a mobile one that with flash. People paid attention to that, but now there's not there anymore.
Your point is well taken. That is a dangerous area, and while that proposal, well, not proposal, but while that idea is not something that's going to happen, as part of the comprehensive plan, the township is reviewing that intersection to find a way to make it safer and make improvements. So while that's not going to happen, what you saw on the wall, that we are looking at ways to make it safer, and if you attend the meetings, or you'll be able to check out our comprehensive plan, I guess it'll be ready probably by next year, early next year, I guess.
1 year from here, yeah. I know, because every day somebody cuts me off, and I know I'm in the right lane, and they pull right in front of me.
Right.
And that's, I've said so many Hail Marys. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much,
Mary.
Thanks, Dee. Anybody else wish to address the board tonight? Okay, hearing none. Moving on to approval of minutes, September 13th, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I did not receive a copy of the September 27 meeting. But if others did and wish to make a motion, that's fine.
So moved.
Not in my packet.
I didn't get it either.
Yeah, that was emailed separately on Monday, I believe, Johnine. Is that correct?
Yeah, I received it via email after the packet, yeah.
Yeah, it was not in the packet, but it was sent
That's why I
out.
asked.
Yep.
Moved in second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of committees, Buildings and Grounds, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report, but we are looking forward to meeting with the Solar Renewable Energy Company to explore savings that we might be able to get with some solar installation. That's it.
That's it.
No, mine.
All right, thank you. Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanderson.
No further report. I think we've had a good general roundtable discussion since March, including all members of the board, and looking forward to, unless we have modifications, of course, you can bring them up at any time, but the budget is as it was, so we'll be going through the normal advertising procedure. This is October. That'll be November.
Correct.
I don't know. Have you picked a date to submit it to?
Yeah, I would anticipate that we're going to have probably a budget. I was going to reach out to you shortly to try to schedule a Budget and Finance Committee meeting, as we continue to refine it. So just yesterday, for example, we got our health insurance costs for next year.
Yeah.
Those increases are less than what was contemplated in the original budget, so that's a positive thing. So again, as we continue to refine the numbers, hopeful to engage the committee and then ultimately, obviously,
Sure.
the full board at the November meeting.
Which is our standard operating procedure, so there's nothing new coming toward us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Public Works, Commissioner Napper.
Yes, Mr. President. The Public Works report for the month of September. In Ward 2, 4 speed humps were installed between Crooked Hill Road and Continental Drive. The official starting date for the leaf management area will begin October 22nd in LMA area number 1. You will see leaf equipment throughout the township in certain areas that have heavy leaves before the official leaf picket. This is to make sure our equipment is working properly. And as a final note, Mr. President, in the 3rd Ward, new basketball hoops were installed along with backboards, hoops, and basketball courts were resurfaced, and the lawn was restored in preparation for the Edgemount Park dedication ribbon cutting ceremony on Saturday, October 6th. The fundraising effort led by Harlem Globetrotter Chris Handels Franklin, which represents the 3rd Ward, renovation project in the Harrisburg area. This ends my report.
That looked like a good day from what I saw on Facebook.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. We had a great time. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
I didn't say, I'm not even going to correct you that it wasn't a fundraiser, but
Excuse me?
it wasn't a fundraiser.
Whatever.
Okay, moving on. Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Barczak.
Thank you. The next scheduled yard waste pickup by Penn Waste is Saturday, October 20th. Please place all materials at the curb prior to 6 a.m. that day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
And can I ask a question? I don't know if there's another appropriate part in the meeting to ask about leaf pickup, since Commissioner Napper just gave the report. I'm wondering if there's a way to find out in the 1st Ward, the areas where the project is taking place, if there's going to be any kind of instruction for residents as to if they should put their leaves in the alley, if not in front of the street, just because I'm not sure if the gravel on some of the roads would interfere with the leaf machine. If I don't know, do you have any guidance on that?
Yeah. So,
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
come up or-
Yes.
yeah, would you
Yeah, if you
please?
would, Nate.
Thank you.
So, what we asked them to do is put them right along the curb to begin with, and not in the street where they can, so we can get back to the curb line and pick up the leaves. We could also do alleyways, but a lot of that equipment's so high and bulky that it just won't make it down a lot
So
of the
alleys are not a good option. But as far as putting it where there's I know stones can damage the leaf
Right.
Pickup equipment machine.
I mean, it's sort of one of those. It's like, you know, you have to do what you have to do. I mean, we'll do our best to try to avoid as much as possible. We always have someone out raking as well, so we can kind of rake back and pick up. So we just don't go down. So there's always a ground guy that works the machinery and rakes as well.
Okay, so no change then.
No, it's just
All right.
it's just going to be impossible to get down the alleyways. A lot of that equipment is like that equipment. You have to have a Class A to pull a lot of it. So
I
it's
understand.
large equipment. So it's just almost impossible to do it that way.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, you do have some residents who move them out on the side of the street where they can, or there are some alleys that we do accommodate residents in that area, but just for most of them, we just can't.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Administration Personnel, Commissioner Napper.
Oh, no report, sir.
Thank you. Police, Commissioner Engel.
No report.
Thank you. Fire and EMS, Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. President. 6 members of our fire and rescue services deployed to South Carolina in support of search and rescue missions during Hurricane Florence. They were deployed for 2 weeks. Currently, 3 members deployed Tuesday of this week in support of Hurricane Michael, which is making its way through the Gulf Coast and into Florida and Georgia, and coming north. So we wish them well, and we certainly wish the best for those in the path of that storm. Fire companies have been out conducting public fire safety education events. October is Fire Safety Month, and also my annual reminder, this is a good time to change the batteries in your smoke detectors. If you do it in conjunction with when we change the clocks, that's always a good reminder to change batteries in your smoke detectors. Smoke detectors do save lives, so please do that. So they've been in schools, daycares, churches, and businesses for Fire Prevention Week and, again, Fire Prevention Month. And the fire companies would like to acknowledge Watkins Supply Company for the use of a building that they were demolishing on 6th Street, and our volunteer fire companies conducted over 50 hours of training at that location. So we thank Watkins Supply Company for their support of our volunteer firefighters and our volunteer fire companies. And that concludes my report. Thank you,
Thank you very much. Recreation, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Franklin of the Harlem Globetrotters and the Chris Franklin Foundation. They have graciously given back to the Edgemont community by restoring 2 basketball courts that he frequently played on in his youth. The restoration included 2 poles, basketball rims, backboards, and resurfacing of both courts. And he also, this past weekend, he actually had like a ribbon cutting ceremony where his foundation gave out free hot dogs, hamburgers. I mean, it was a nice celebration, and we couldn't thank Mr. Handles enough. So I'd like to say personally thank you, not only to him and his foundation, but we also want to take an opportunity to thank our recreation department, who also participated, and like Commissioner Napper said, our public works department also helped out in helping to restore that playground. So we want to thank them, and we also want to take an opportunity. I want to take an opportunity and thank Dauphin County Commissioners for their help in providing the funds. The estimated cost of that project was $39,000 in materials and surfacing, no taxpayer dollars. And that concludes my report there, but I do have one other comment. Trick or Treat is Thursday, October 25th in the township from 6 to 8 p.m. And please visit the township website for additional recreation activities and events. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I just add one bit on that? Unfortunately, one of an 8th Ward resident contacted me, and I know we sometimes talk about this later, but since we're on recreation, there is a vacancy now for the 8th Ward spot on the Recreation Advisory Committee. The person who occupied that position is Tony Wright. He and his family, or he and his wife, are moving outside of the township, so there is a vacancy for an 8th Ward member. So if you're interested, please send a note of intent and a resume to Mr. Kratzer, to the township, or any one of us on the Board of Commissioners. and you'll be considered for that position. So
does that person have to live in the 8th Ward, or where? Okay,
yes.
because we have
and there are one or two at-large spots as well, but the rest of the spots on the advisory committee are ward-specific.
Okay, good. Oh, I hate to see him go.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he
he
was
was.
serving as the chair, I believe.
He was,
He was
yeah.
just
He actually
recently,
spoke to
so,
the news,
yeah.
on behalf of the Recreation Department. And, I just have one other comment, still my mic. I'd like to just take an opportunity to say hi to my 2 residents out there, Ivy and her spouse. They're new to the township, and we just want to say hi. And thank you so much for attending the meeting. I met them at the park, and I told them what our meeting was and invited them.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
One other thing under recreation, and I don't know if you were notified yet of it by the county, but the extension of the Greenbelt up to Fort Hunter, there's going to be, I just found out about this today. There's going to be a groundbreaking on October 30th in the morning. I think it's at 10 o'clock. We'll be getting something via email unless the staff already has.
It's on Facebook.
Yeah, we have not received anything at this point, but as soon as we do, we'll make sure to distribute
Yeah,
it.
it's on Facebook, but just kind of set that aside. That'll be a great project for residents of Susquehanna Township.
Do we need to remind the county that Fort Hunter's in Susquehanna Township?
But it's owned by the county.
Yeah.
There you go.
I had that conversation the other day. That's why I mentioned that.
Well, the Civil War Museum's in the township, too.
That's right.
Hey-o, bring it over.
But the park isn't, yes.
Excuse me, could some of those, like the president, could you speak a little louder, please?
Yes, ma'am.
No, thank you for that.
Thanks
Yeah.
for calling me
yeah.
out on that. Planning and zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had kind of an interesting series of events in planning and zoning since our last meeting. The Planning Commission met on the 24th of September. There were 2 items on the agenda. One was a preliminary final development plan for Burger King on Dodson Court, which is off of Cone Road. That was tabled at the applicant's request, so we're probably going to be looking at that down the road. The second item was a preliminary and final land development plan for Cherry Orchard Place. There were numerous staff, engineer, and county comments on that. And after some discussion, that was tabled until the next meeting to give the applicant time to address some of those concerns before taking action. One of the issues that came up there was handicap parking. It's an elderly housing complex, and they were just at the minimum, I believe, for the number. I think it was 6 handicap parking spaces for 51 apartments, which meets the minimum requirement, but there were concerns raised about whether that was going to be adequate for that situation. So that's going to have to be addressed. There was a zoning hearing board meeting on the 3rd of October. It was the first meeting with our new member of the zoning hearing board, Beryl Kerr. There were many residents of the Edgemont area in attendance, along with their commissioner.
Thank you.
And the meeting went on till about 11:30 in the evening. There were 2 items on that agenda. One was from A.J. Sharma of Walnut Crossing Apartments, which is at the corner of Progress and Walnut Street. Their proposal was they wanted a variance to be able to fill in a swimming pool and build a 2-story office and storage building in that place where the swimming pool was that's not being used. That was approved in a 2-to-1 vote. The second item was the reason there were so many residents there was proposed a group home for mental health and rehab in the Edgemont residential area. They requested a variance for a halfway house. But when the applicant came, they argued that it wasn't really a halfway house, it was a group home, and therefore met the zoning, and they didn't really need the variance. There were many residents there spoke in opposition due to the presence of a playground, daycare, and churches in the area, along with a lot of children in the neighborhood. After much discussion, finally a determination was made that they couldn't move. The applicant actually withdrew the variance request and will instead appeal the zoning officer's determination that it was a halfway house. there was a real bone of contention about the definition of a halfway house versus the definition of a group home in our zoning ordinance. And I think we're going to need to make some changes to the code probably to clarify that. But at any rate, because of the public notice requirements, whereby, any action by the zoning hearing board has to be advertised, this was a change. We couldn't just switch gears and go to addressing that issue. So there's going to be another hearing on this same issue, I believe, and only at this point it'll be a appeal of the zoning officer's determination that it was a halfway house.
Okay, and the appeal will go directly back to the zoning hearing.
Back to the zoning hearing board, I believe. Yeah, I believe that's right. And that concludes
That is
my
correct,
report.
yes. Yep.
And my 2 new residents live right there in back
They
of
do, yeah.
that house, or that new proposed group home.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Bids and agreements. Veterans Park Improvement Project, final pay application. Mr. Grubik?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, you have before you the final payment application for the Veterans Park project, which is completely finished now, and I think you'll all agree it's a great project for those of you that have seen it. It went along very well, and the contractor is to be commended for his fine work on it. And I would recommend that the application for the final payment to the contractor, T.R. Stoner, in the amount of $91,601 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, you know what? I think they did an awesome job, and I think it was Justin's daughter that was, it was Justin's daughter that was like our test, and she liked the part.
It's got her seal of approval.
Yeah, her seal of approval. Yeah, but they did an awesome job. It looks nice over there, veterans. And I know we had a ribbon cutting ceremony planned, and then it was, the weather, because of the weather. I wonder, are we planning another one?
Yeah, I think that was a discussion that the Rec Advisory Committee is in the midst of having at this point. We don't have a specific date, but again, as soon as we get that, we'll make sure to communicate that.
Okay, maybe we'll have something like the Chris Franklin.
Yeah, yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, like hamburgers, hot dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Johnson, you don't need Chris. You have the commissioner from the Ninth Ward to be in attendance and be the celebrity.
Okay. Oh, no.
Excuse me, I missed that.
That's because you guys were down there talking. We're not going to repeat it.
I
tape.
was there during the ribbon cutting, if I recall. You guys weren't there.
For the record, my son had a baseball game in Hershey.
I was helping my daughter move. Sorry, Steve.
Excuses.
I know.
I'm not telling you where I was.
All right, it's been moved to second. Any comment? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Stormwater Authority proposal. Mr. Kratzer.
Yeah, members of the board, we have with us today Adrian from HRG to provide kind of a brief overview of the proposal that was submitted by HRG. Again, this has been a conversation that the board has engaged in for some time, but there was a small group of members of the board that kind of reviewed proposals, Commissioner Pine, President Lynch, Commissioner Fleming, and ultimately, we're back here making a recommendation for your consideration of the proposal from HRG. So, Adrian, if you could come up and just kind of provide a brief kind of synopsis, that would probably be helpful, and answer any questions that the board may have.
Thanks, David. Good evening. So HRG provided a proposal to the township dated November 30th, 2016. And that proposal was for service related to implementing a stormwater utility in order to help handle the growing stormwater management and pavement management expenses of the township. And so our proposal includes a variety of services. It includes going through and looking at the current stormwater program, looking at what some of the current needs are, the goals and priorities of the program, upcoming regulations in order to propose an enhanced program that's going to meet the current needs of the township, but also establish a plan in order to support the long-term public safety and continued economic development of the region. It also looks at finding an equitable way to distribute those costs of stormwater management across property owners using impervious area. And as part of that, a public education and outreach strategy is included in order to help educate property owners on the importance of water quality, on the township's new stormwater program, the benefits that property owners are going to receive from it, and then the associated funding mechanisms that are proposed. And then a credit policy is included, and that's meant to help incentivize property owners to come alongside the township to do things on their own property to help improve water quality, to help you meet some of your regulatory requirements, and help them to start managing stormwater, which again reduces your cost and provides benefits back to the community. So the township isn't alone in commencing this endeavor. Urbanized communities throughout the Commonwealth are currently receiving new MS4 permits. Those are municipal separate stormwater permits. And along with those 2018 permits, they include a lot of new regulation, new requirements that municipalities now actually need to install devices, we call them best management practices, green infrastructure to reduce pollutants entering waterways. So this is all considered an unfunded mandate, and so municipalities across the Commonwealth are commencing similar services in order to find the best way to start redeveloping and managing and funding these programs. Are there any specific questions about the proposal or about the services that are included in it?
No. From my perspective, you hit the nail on the head. It is an unfunded mandate.
Absolutely.
But we need help in terms of meeting our obligations at both the state and federal levels, and also paying for the things that are going to enable us to be able to meet those obligations imposed from above. So, the committee did meet with staff. We went over all the proposals, and I think at this point, and I was on there with Mr. Fleming and Mr. Pine, at this point, I think we're poised to recommend that HRG help us out with this program. And then the chair would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Then seconded. Any questions or comments?
What is the cost?
So the cost of the services, it's estimated at $53,400. It's on a time and materials basis. And as part of that, we're looking forward to continuing to partner with staff in order to develop the program and implement it in the most cost-effective way for the township.
So that, if I'm reading correctly, that could be reduced, right? If we get
Sure.
additional coordination with other municipalities and/or the county.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's one thing that we've already kind of started discussions on with staff and with some members of the committee, and it's something that we look to actively continue to do. I've had the opportunity to work with over 40 municipalities in the last couple of years in implementing similar programs, and I would say the key to really making it work and being cost effective is collaboration and partnerships. And so that's one thing that we really hope to help develop to further enhance your program.
Go ahead, Judy.
And I agree with President Lynch that this is a much needed program, because as we are now, we're paying for these unfunded mandates, and it's not divided equitably. So this is a good approach. I guess my only other question would be probably to staff or anybody else who can answer it. So was this a planned expense, and what fund are we going to draw on to pay for the proposal or the program?
This was initially included. There was cost initially included in the 2018 budget, the current budget year,
Okay.
for purposes of funding.
So general
funding
fund?
this to general fund. That is correct. Yep.
Thank you.
One of the current practices that a lot of municipalities are using is they're using funds out of the general fund or reserve account to get the utility started, and then using the fee coming out of the utility to repay the general fund or any reserve funds that are used.
So one of the expenses that the board had incurred that we've talked about the potential recapture is the impervious surface data that was collected. So there was that was I think slightly over $150,000 that was spent for purposes of that flight. and there's an opportunity to recover those costs, as Adrian's talking about. There's also an opportunity, again, depending on the extent of what the county's doing, to potentially monetize that data in some fashion to recover some of that cost. So that's going back to this discussion about the opportunities for collaboration and sharing of this information, potentially seeing some return. But again, we're expecting that these costs will be able to be recaptured through whatever mechanism is decided upon by this board.
And also in the same lines, I was just wondering, did we explore any grants maybe to pay for this, or?
For purposes of this?
Yes, just for the purpose, right.
We did not. We're not specifically aware of grants that are funding this this aspect of it. Surely when we get into the identification of projects, that would be an opportunity to look at funding, external funding, in addition to the potential funding here to implement those, but not specifically as it relates to the proposal.
Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of grants to actually establish the program, but we are finding that there's opportunities for funding partners once you get the utility up and running. So one example would be Penvest, which is a common source that we use for water, wastewater, stormwater. Their new funding analysis now only gives out grant money for municipalities and authorities that charge a stormwater fee. So in order to get grant funding now for future stormwater projects, this type of utility needs to be established. And we're finding that there's other entities that are willing to come on board, partner in providing funds once they know that there is a sustainable mechanism in place for stormwater infrastructure. So they know that the infrastructure that they're providing grant funding for is going to be operated and maintained and sustained in the most cost-effective manner.
Two things, and actually I was just talking about maybe was there a grant just possibly for the study, or just for the study, but you pretty much answered my question. But do you mind just telling us your credentials? I mean,
sure.
Yeah. Tell us your name. You didn't say,
So my name is Adrienne Vicari, and I have the pleasure of working under Bob's leadership at HRG.
Saying that because he's here, because
I lead our firm's financial services division. So my background is in water, wastewater, stormwater engineering. The first part of my career, I worked with municipalities in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, on planning, designing, and overseeing construction of water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. And then I moved over into our financial services division. So now I have the opportunity to partner with our clients in order to help them implement projects and help them manage their utilities in the most cost-effective manner. So I really enjoy it, being able to partner with our clients in order to help look ahead and how do we enhance this community and make it a place of growth into the future. So we do a lot of things like asset management planning, capital improvement planning, financing strategies, getting financing in place for projects. And one of the things that I really like to do is help establish revenue streams. A lot of municipalities have been struggling with stormwater infrastructure management. Lots of times it falls to the bottom of the list just because of all of the other needs of the community. And when we can find ways to implement programs like this to form a dedicated revenue stream for a utility that's been struggling and do it for a way that it's more cost effective for the residential property owners, I think it's a really great opportunity.
Oh, okay. Hey, thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
Adrian, was it HRG that I saw had worked with Luzerne County to form an authority?
That's correct, yeah. So I had the honor of working with Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. They are a regional authority up in Luzerne County. They provide wastewater service to 36 municipalities, and I've been able to come alongside them and implement the Commonwealth's first regional stormwater authority. So we have 31 municipalities that we serve as part of the program, soon to be 33 municipalities. So basically, we've developed and implemented a stormwater authority for 33 municipalities, all of the programming, established a new stormwater utility, establishing the fees and the credit policies to fully support it.
The reason I raised that, I was wondering if that would be a viable possibility in Dauphin County.
Sure, that is.
To have a regional county authority instead of each individual municipality?
So we saw in the Wyoming Valley region that each municipality could meet the current regulatory requirements at a savings of 50 to 70% by coming together as a region to handle these new MS4 requirements. And I do think that there's a lot of benefits to be had in starting to manage stormwater on a watershed basis as opposed to a municipal basis. We can start looking at more holistic solutions to our stormwater needs. And so we're actively working with Dauphin County. Dauphin County formed a partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers to actually do a study to start looking at ways that they could partner with the municipalities and provide some of these stormwater services on a county level. And so Dave mentioned a minute ago that there might be ways to collaborate with the county going further, going into the future, having them potentially buy up some of our data and so forth, some of the things that we develop as part of this process. And that's what he was referring to, that county initiative that's being evaluated right now.
Thank you.
Do we have a written proposal of scope of work
For HRGs?
for this
Yeah, it's in your,
$53,000 project?
Yeah, we do have it.
it's in your packet.
Can I see it?
It's in your packet.
It was emailed as
in
part
the
of the
pack-
packet.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
emailed as part of the
Yeah,
packet.
Mr. President, just
Yeah, and it's
sort of
pretty, I'm sorry, really
I'm sorry.
quickly, Tom. It's very detailed in terms of what HRG scope of work is, how they plan to go about it. It is a very, yes, we do have that. We do.
Yeah,
Well, maybe he missed it.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's a detailed document, and they did a very nice job of laying it out. I mean, she could provide additional
Thank
information,
you.
Mona, if you're looking for it.
Yeah, there you go. He could have missed it.
Rocky, the first couple of pages there is a summary.
Okay, sorry, I didn't get
No,
it.
No, don't be
Oh, my
sorry. I don't know
attachments.
why they all get it. He missed it.
Wow,
See, that's the benefit of
super
having
aggressive
a
down there,
paper
Mona.
packet.
Mr. President, just a brief mention that, I think we on the committee took this very serious because stormwater management, while it seems like one of those local government terms and doesn't seem of importance to most people, in fact, it's vitally important. Health and safety important because not only are we talking about flooding in our communities, we're talking about everything from mosquitoes to clean water, but we're also talking about our roads. Our roads are part of our stormwater management system. In fact, some of our roads have been damaged significantly by problems with stormwater management. We've got a road right now in the township that's starting to fail because of stormwater problems. And then in that case, it's a very costly endeavor. So I think this is a good investment, and I appreciate our HRG's assistance in helping us to put together a significant long-term plan about stormwater management. So, thank you.
Thanks.
And I think one of the most important things to point out is this will be a transparent process. We will get the community involved. We will be discussing this openly in terms of what our plan is and how we intend to move forward. So, I think in the small group, we all agreed that that's the best way to go about this, and it's a challenging thing. I mean, we're gonna, we're talking about potentially imposing a fee. Certainly nobody wants that. It's not ideal, but as you mentioned, these pressures from DEP, from the Environmental Protection Agency, we can't get around these things without significant investment. And we need to follow the rules in terms of, the pollution, the amount of our total maximum daily load that goes into the Paxton Creek watershed, and a variety of other things. So, it's vitally important, and we appreciate your help.
Sure.
Thanks for time.
No, actually, thank you so much for just taking the time and just telling us about yourself. I certainly appreciate it, and even giving us a little bit more information about the project. Yes, we all could have read it, but you know what? You did an awesome job presenting it. And you know what? I think Bob is lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. This is definitely something that I'm passionate about, so it was a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't hear your comment. Did you say something?
I said, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
He was agreeing.
We are very lucky
Yeah.
to have AJ.
I thought she was awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks
All
again.
right. It's been moved and seconded.
Yes.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Mona?
I wasn't going there.
See, when I'm speeding through, y'all give me the looks.
Just a
Yep,
comment.
good. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep, thank you.
Just a comment. And,
Yep.
you know, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to have discussion, as we always do. I think it's good. Justin, Commissioner Fleming indicated that it's a transparent process, and it's always good if you can give folks an idea of what we're voting on. So thank you for that.
That's fine.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, agreement between the township and Property Registration Champions LLC. Mr. Kratzer.
Sure, Mr. President. This is a renewal, I guess, of an existing vendor relationship we have. We do currently have a relationship with Property Registration Champions. And what they do for us, the township back in 2011 had enacted an ordinance entitled Registration, Maintenance, and Security of Abandoned Real Property. And that ordinance was adopted in October of 2011. What Property Registration Champions does is really helps us administer the requirements of that ordinance. So again, one of the requirements of the ordinance is when a property is foreclosed on or is vacant, there's a registration process, and they help us manage that registration process for us and with us. So again, this is a renewal of an existing agreement with this vendor. We've been very happy with their services. The fees are consistent with the fees previously imposed, so there is no increase from a fee perspective. We currently, by ordinance, require a $200 registration fee. That is split equally between us and the vendor. Again, we are recommending re-entering the relationship with this vendor for this purpose.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions?
I just have one question.
For it.
Is this actually, is it working? We don't
It
ever
is
talk
working.
about
I mean,
it.
it's one of those things that you don't really hear about. We don't talk much about. And actually, I think in the future we're going to have the vendor come and speak to you exactly what the program does and how they do the work that they do. And then I think they also have some recommendations for you in terms of enhancing the existing ordinance that the township has in place relative to this issue. This vendor does work with a series of Dauphin County municipalities, Derry Township, the City of Harrisburg, Lower Paxton Township, Swatara Township. So many of the larger urbanized townships in Dauphin County use this vendor. Actually, you were somewhat of a leader in this issue, and you passed this ordinance back in 2011. And they've learned from the work that they've done here and also the work that they're doing in the other communities. So it is very helpful from a staff perspective. When there is a property maintenance code issue with a vacant property, as you can imagine, those properties are transitioning from banks to banks. There's different entities that are responsible to maintain those as they're going through the foreclosure process. So the ability for Joe to access a computer program to essentially notify him who's responsible to be maintaining the property so that he can resolve those issues that may be a result of a citizen complaint or just awareness as he's going out and about is extremely helpful. But,
no, I remember when we enacted it, and the gentleman did a presentation at one of our conferences.
Yeah.
It's just that we just don't hear anything about it, and so. But if you're saying it's working, that's awesome.
Yeah, from an administrative perspective, it's working, and
awesome.
we do intend to have him back at some point in the future to talk specifically about the program and what can be done to enhance the program. So.
From my perspective, I think it's been helpful because anytime someone needs to report a property that's abandoned or vacant and has high grass or snow that needs to be shoveled, it's been a lot easier to contact the banks and the property managers now than prior to having this ordinance.
Right. So one of the things I think he's going to talk to you about is perhaps right now you have annual registration requirements. Again, these properties flip pretty quick. So he's going to probably talk about maybe doing it semi-annual registration so that we're even more up to date in terms of the information that we have available. But again, that's to be coming. The first order of business is to continue the relationship and then potentially enhance the relationship moving forward. Any of that additional discussion won't affect the terms of the agreement. The terms of the agreement are consistent with the terms that you have currently.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time and
problem.
explaining that. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business. Do we have any?
There is no unfinished business, Mr.
All right.
President, to report on.
Reports. Mr. Kratzer.
We have 2 traffic studies. I'm going to ask Rob to come up. One is concerning Larry Drive and the installation of speed humps. And the other concerns Cone Road and Walker Mill and a crosswalk installation.
Yes, neither of these are going to be regulatory in any nature. There's a traffic study for crosswalk. This came from citizens out along the intersection of Cone Road and Walker Mill Road. After I met with citizens, which was, I got this study back, I do recommend crosswalks at that intersection. That is a heavily traveled intersection, cut through from North Progress Avenue over to Elmerton. It's also an area that's getting more and more pedestrian traffic, so I make that recommendation.
So move.
Second.
Which one was this? Crooked Hill? Or
Cone and Walker Mill.
Walker Mill. And Walker Mill. I thought the study said no recommendation.
That was the other, I believe.
That was on the speed humps for Larry Drive.
Right. But there already is a crosswalk there?
No, there's not. It's a four-way, there's a four-way intersection there, so it's set up for a crosswalk.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, it's moved to second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second traffic study actually was originally for any additional speed humps on Larry Drive. Study recommends no new speed humps. However, it makes additional recommendations as follows. Increased enforcement of the stop sign at Larry Drive and 32nd Street that we'll see to. Have 25 MPH painted on Larry Drive at the approach to 32nd Street. And again, Larry Drive is another cut-through street that takes you from Union Deposit over to South Progress, or South Progress to Union Deposit, and you avoid the intersection of South Progress and Union Deposit. And then lastly, place a crosswalk from the northwest corner of Larry Drive and South 32nd Street to the southwest corner of that intersection. This would allow for the protection of pedestrians trying to cross from the north side of Larry Drive to the entrance of the Latchmere Swim Pool, which it certainly in the summertime gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. So I make that recommendation.
So move.
Second. Moved in second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you, question for you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
When would you like traffic studies brought to your attention? If we have one that we wanted to present to you during the workshop or at this meeting?
At our workshop. Workshop.
Workshop.
It's a regular-
Okay, I just
Right.
wanted to clarify.
So, Commissioner, on the workshop agenda, there will now be a standing item that'll deal with that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. Mr. Grubik, anything else?
We have our report in your packet, Commissioners. If there are any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. One of the items on your report talks about Susquehanna Union Green traffic meetings with PennDOT on that. Is there any update on the progress of that discussion?
Yes. We had a series of meetings, not only with the developer and their representatives, but also with PennDOT. Right now, the PennDOT is reviewing the final traffic impact study prepared by the developer's traffic engineer and coming up with a report based on that review, which will identify the scope of the improvements that are required to help mitigate the impacts from the development.
So you don't really know which way that's going at this point?
Not at this time.
Okay.
However, there is a meeting scheduled about 10 days with the developer. They are in the process of finalizing their Phase 1 final plan, and they want to just sit down with staff prior to the submission of that plan in order to discuss some items, primarily regarding to stormwater management. The traffic end of it is in PennDOT's hands right now.
Thank you.
Anything from the Law Bureau?
Well, I had and planned on making extensive comments on revisions to the first-class township code. But in light of the Eagles fans on
Next
the
is the school board.
No, I got time.
I think I'll just defer to my report because Commissioner Napper
I want to
is
hear
entirely
word
too
for word
close.
about this report.
Mr. President.
If I can't hear that, my comments are going to get long.
Mr. President, it's actually a very good opportune moment to mention to our solicitor that he does not need to make that report because the Local Government Commission is going to be producing that in the very near future. So you're off the hook.
Actually, Commissioner Sanderson, I had just made that up in order to annoy Commissioner Napper, to be honest, and
probably
to
made that up
give Commissioner Johnson an opportunity to take a shot at Commissioner Napper. So I'll just withdraw all of those comments and have them stricken from the record.
Right, Janine?
Did they ever happen?
I object. All right. Thank you for that report. School Board, Commissioner Fleming, you got anything?
Very briefly, Mr. President, I just want to remind everybody that the Pink Out Breast Cancer Awareness football game is this Friday, tomorrow at Roscoe Warner Field, and this is very, very interesting because the football team is playing Redland High School, but students from Susquehanna Township and Redland High School have partnered for this fundraiser, and the funds raised are going to support Vicky's Angel Foundation and Pink Hands of Hope, two breast cancer organizations. You know, if you're like me, you know someone who has been afflicted with breast cancer, and you know, fortunately, the research has shown that if it's caught early, more people can survive. Breast cancer overwhelmingly affects women, of course, but men do suffer as well. But you know, all the funding that's gone into research and has led to really great medical advancements in terms of early detection. You know, we know more about mammograms and self-exams now than we ever have. So it's an example of wonderful work in terms of research funding and also the knowledge of the affliction, you know, getting much, much better. So for more information, you can visit sthsalumniassociation.com. So they'll be selling T-shirts and all kinds of things to raise awareness for breast cancer. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I do have a comment. Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I hate to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm just thinking of it.
No, that's fine.
You know, I know that my two daughters came over and asked for a donation. Did we as a township make a donation?
The township
we did.
not make a donation. You know, generally, as you can imagine, we get donation requests from quite a number of entities.
Oh, okay. You know what? I didn't follow up with them, and he mentioned it, and I just thought about it because my kids will be a part of the Powder Puff. You know, they will be a part of that.
I mean, obviously, if that's something that the board wants to do.
That's okay. I know all of their
we can
personal
discuss
numbers.
that.
I could hit them up.
Perhaps as individuals.
Yeah, I could hit them all up. But it's actually too late to have our names on the T-shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can buy one.
But it's never too late for us to donate. And
That's right.
And you made a comment. Let's just say October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and
It was a good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
it was a very good report.
The best.
Thank you, commissioners.
Authority, Commissioner Sanderson.
Thank you. No report.
Indian Wheels, Commissioner Barczyk.
No report, but I do have a brief shade tree
Go
report.
ahead.
There's a community tree planting. It will take place October 20th from 9 a.m. to noon. It will happen at Christian McNaughton Memorial Park, and that's located at Weatherford Way and Crooked Hill Road behind Thomas Holtzman. And if you'd like to volunteer and join us, you can sign up on the township website. And some of the items we recommend you bring, of course, are gardening gloves, wear closed-toe shoes, and bring a shovel if possible. And you can find more information about that on the township website. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Communications, Commissioner Pine, do you have any good news for us?
Yes, Mr. President, the township newsletter for the fall and winter has been delivered to 13,839 residents and businesses at a cost of $2,812.17. And I should mention that's postage only because thanks to the initiative of Recreation and Parks Director Bob Reichert, the township has actually saved more than $7,000 in newsletter costs this year. Particularly, we've gone, or specifically, we've gone to a private-public partnership in which the newsletter is designed and printed at a savings at no cost, actually, to the township. So that's some good news about saving money as compared to previous newsletters, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks good, and I think the postal arrangement is much better. We used to have those overlaps in area code done by postal carrier route, and some would end up in Lower Paxton homes
Correct.
and
Correct.
not in Susquehanna Township homes. So I'm right on one of those boundaries, and I used to get the Lower Paxton newsletter, but not the Susquehanna. So it's working out better for us, I think. Okay, new business. Boards and commissions. We have a vacancy on the Human Relations Commission. And I would encourage anybody watching or any commissioners that keep an ear to the ground for any possible candidate for the commission. Mr. Kratzer, do you want to talk about our 2019 MMO?
Yeah, I just, again, Mr. President, in the interest of publicly acknowledging this information was distributed to the board on September the 28th for the 3 pension plans that the township maintains, which is the non-uniform plan, the uniform plan, and then the PMRS plan. I'm just simply seeking kind of a public acknowledgement through motion of receipt of those respective MMOs prior to September 30th, 2018.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Vehicle for sale, 2006 GMC cargo van.
So we put this on municipal bid. You had authorized that previously. The high bid for this is $2,700, which is generally consistent with what our expectations were for the van. We're recommending acceptance of the high bid, again, in the amount of $2,700 for the van.
Move to sell it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And discussion, House Bill 2564.
Yeah, and this was, again, to the extent that you want to discuss this, there's a copy of a letter that was signed by President Lynch that was sent to both Representative Helm and Senator DeSanto concerning House Bill 2564, which primarily deals with state preemption of local regulations relative to regulating wireless communication facilities within public rights-of-way. Again, if this board recalls, back at the end of 2015, the beginning of 2016, you adopted an ordinance imposing what I would argue are responsible regulations on the placement of these facilities within your public rights-of-way. The proposed legislation would essentially strip the authority away from the local jurisdictions to impose those requirements and would provide a universal statewide requirement. And there was some discussion by the respective government associations and so forth relative to the concern of removing this from the local jurisdictions. And there's a copy of correspondence that the President had sent to the 2 local representatives on this issue. I don't know if you have anything further on that.
Yeah, essentially, we spent, a significant amount of money putting together with our consultant, Dan Cohen out of Pittsburgh, a right-of-way ordinance that would affect telecommunication transmission devices such as this and put the power in our hands where it belongs, because we do control the right-of-way, to make sure that these new mini refrigerator-sized boxes that are in vogue now are not placed in our right-of-way without our ability to control what goes in our right-of-way and how it goes there and what the aesthetics are, plus taking away our ability to have a fair fee to make us whole in terms of our enforcement of the ordinance. So it's from my perspective, it's it runs directly counter to what we voted on 2 years ago, and what the citizens of this township deserve in terms of what is going to be in their right of way. I mean, my whole front yard is a right-of-way, and, you know, I mow it, so it looks like my lawn. But, you know, if one of the telecommunications companies decide they want to place a device, you know, right beside my crabapple, they can do it without any say-so from the township. So, anyway, that's why I wrote the letter. I don't think it was acted on. Today was the last day of session, I believe.
No. They're back in next week.
Voting?
15th, 16th, and 17th.
I thought they were non-voting, but in any event, it's something we got to keep an eye on.
But I did check an executive session, and there's been no movement on the bill. And I haven't noticed it on the marked calendars or anything, so I think we'll dodge it this session, but it's probably going to come back up, so it's good we're being proactive.
Yeah.
What response, if any, have we received from our representatives regarding your request?
I haven't received anything.
Yeah, I have not received anything either. It did go out just, I believe, on Thursday or Friday of last week, so it has not, they've not had it for that length, that much time. But to date, we have not received anything.
Thank you.
Any commissioner comments before we pay some bills?
Yes, just one. I'd like to thank the Boy Scouts. I saw them one Saturday on Linglestown Road, one of the local troops doing a litter cleanup. So we appreciate their service. I know there's quite a few groups in the township that do go out periodically and pick up litter, but we thank them for doing that. Thank you.
Nope. Anybody else? All right, you want to pay some bills, Sean?
Mr. President.
Yes.
I move to accept the report of bills paid in the amount of $3,578,365.21.
Second.
Moved in second. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved in second. Any comment? All in favor? Out of here.